Yeah. Turn on mic, please.
Yep.
Rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you.
Do you want to call our case first?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
That's the.
No, this is you Dorothy.
Yes,
I
Dorothy.
know you're gonna be second. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This hearing before the New Britain Township Zoning Hearing Board is called to order. In preparation for our business this evening, ask everyone in attendance, please silence your cell phones, place them in do not disturb mode. For your information, this, as our all township meeting, is being recorded and shared via virtual meeting tonight. A few introductions before we get started. Ryan Gaiman is our Assistant Planning and Zoning Officer. TJ Walsh is a solicitor for the Zoning Hearing Board. Kathy Basili is a member of the Zoning Hearing Board. Scott Fisher is a member of the Zoning Hearing Board. Ryan Wantz is our alternate to the Zoning Hearing Board. David Conroy is our zoning officer, and our stenographer tonight is Brenda Capiello. My name is Chuck Coxhead. I'll chair the meeting this evening, hearing this evening. A little housekeeping. The Britain Township Zoning Hearing Board is a quasi-judicial body required by statute of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and created by the New Britain Township Board of Supervisors. The board is chartered with a single responsibility to provide due process to the citizens of New Britain Township to appeal zoning and engineering decisions made by the township. The zoning ordinance was created and is maintained by the New Britain Township Board of Supervisors. This zoning hearing board has no jurisdiction over the contents of the zoning ordinance. We ask that any concerns regarding the contents of the zoning ordinance be directed to the Board of Supervisors. Our procedures for tonight's hearing shall be as follows. Proceedings shall be conducted in a manner similar to that of a court hearing, and all testimony shall be recorded by our stenographer. All affected parties shall have an opportunity to present factual testimony this evening, and all testimony must be given under oath. Only the facts and testimony presented to the board during this hearing will be considered. The board will first hear the applicant's presentation of their case. The board expects the applicant to state the unnecessary hardship, how the proposal will not be detrimental to the public welfare, and any other grounds the applicant believes support the application. The board will also hear from any other individuals who wish to become parties to this hearing. After the testimony is concluded, the board will hear from anyone who simply wishes to make a statement or ask a question that is relevant to the hearing. Depending on the length of the hearing, the board may or may not make a decision on the application or applications this evening. Our first hearing shall be for the application of 338 Park Avenue. Mr. Gaiman, will you please read the public notice and place the application on record?
Please take notice that the New Britain Township Zoning Hearing Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. The New Britain Township Municipal Building, 207 Park Ave, Chalfont, PA, to consider the following applications and/or appeals. The application of Marie J. Schmidt for the property located at 338 and 340 Park Avenue, New Britain Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, identified as tax map parcel number 26-11-66-1. The property is located in the WS Watershed Zoning District. The property is improved with a detached single-family residential dwelling, use B1, an accessory residential garage, and a non-residential building. The non-residential building was previously used for an animal hospital use A11, and/or veterinary office use I12. The applicant proposes to change the existing use of the non-residential building to a commercial trade school use D3, specifically a music school for children on the autism spectrum. The applicant seeks the following relief from the New Britain Township zoning ordinance. A special exception pursuant to section 27-2304 and section 27-3103 to permit the change from the existing non-conforming use to the proposed non-conforming D3 use, and/or B, a variance from section 27-501 to conduct the proposed D3 use where a D3 use is not permitted in the WS zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Oh.
No, do that.
here for you. Is there any, before I read those, is there anyone here for the 180 New Britain Boulevard, 354 Schoolhouse Road application? Okay,
People snuck in.
well, so they don't have to say.
Thank you. No, always keep me in line. Thank you.
The board exhibits for the Schmidt application are as follows. Exhibit 1 is the application itself. Included with the application was a deed dated June 24th, 1998, and a deed dated December 14th, 1988. Exhibit B2 is the Township Zoning Officer letter dated April 23rd, 2014 regarding registration of the prior non-conforming use. Exhibit B3 is a certificate of occupancy that's dated July 9th, 2014. Those are matters, documents that were in the township's file on the property. Exhibit B4 is a letter to the intelligencer. Exhibit B5 is the public notice that was just read into the record. Exhibit B6 is a proof of publication that on June 3rd and June 10th, of this year, the public notice was advertised in the intelligencer. Couldn't have been June. I don't have the dates. I wrote the wrong one, but since we're not in June, it can't be June. But we do have a proof somewhere. The exhibit B7 is a letter to the applicant providing the notice of this hearing. Exhibit B9 is exhibit B8 is a list of property owners that are within 500 feet of the subject property. And with exhibit B8 is a map of those properties. Exhibit B9 is an affidavit of mailing. That notice of this hearing was mailed to the property owners on exhibit B8. That notice was mailed on April 12th, 2023 by Ryan Gaiman. Exhibit B10 is an affidavit of posting. The notice of this hearing was posted on the property. That notice was posted by Ryan Gaiman on April 13th, 2023. And with that affidavit is a photograph of the actual notice that was posted. Lastly, exhibit B11 is the Bucks County floodplain viewer, and aerial and map of the properties. The publication dates in the advance were April 6th and April 13th. My apologies. And those are the board exhibits. Yeah. I have it right here.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Can you please explain party status?
Oh, sure. Okay. The chair indicated at the start that the zoning hearing board is a quasi judicial board. So basically, that means this is run more closer to like a court proceeding than just a conventional town hall. We have parties and there's procedures that we try to follow to allow involvement by the public who are not somebody who's either a part of the application, meaning submitted it, or witness. So there are 3 ways that if you're not the actual applicant, you can participate in this hearing. The first is you don't have to do anything. You're not obligated to speak. If you're here, you can simply sit back and listen. The second way is at the end, the chair will open the floor after all of the witnesses have spoken and after all of the documents and whatever evidence is going to come in has been presented by the parties. The chair will open up the floor for more or less a public comment or question period. At that time, you'll be allowed to submit a question or make a comment to the board or mostly to the board, but it maybe just for the record purposes. But the only limitations that the board will place on those kind of comments are, one, it has to be germane or relevant to not just the application that's before the board, but the jurisdiction of the board. The board doesn't have anything to do that's outside the zoning ordinance. So if your question is more suited for the planning commission or the board of supervisors, we may suggest you reserve that question or take it up at a different forum. And the other limitation we tend to place on the public comment is the repetitiveness occasionally that happens when public members want to speak. The board is not trying to shut anybody down as far as giving them their opportunity to make their point. But at some point, if you're making a point that's been made the 3rd or 4th or the 5th time, its probative value at that point it decreases as it goes on. So we would ask you that if you're going to repeat something that's already been said, we'll say we're going to pass on that. The third way you can be involved in the hearing is the most involved way, and you can ask for party status, which is exactly what it sounds like. You are on the same level as the actual applicant, the individual or the company that submitted the application. To get party status, two things have to happen. One, you have to ask for it. It's not automatic. And two, in order to ask for it, you have to be affected by the application. Affected means you own or live on property that's within a reasonable distance of the property that's the subject to the application. So for the first application, it would be 338 Park Avenue. If you were one of the individuals who got a notice in the mail of this hearing, that means you're within 500 feet, you're affected. If you're not within 500 feet and you didn't get that notice, that doesn't mean you're not affected. You just have to articulate why you're affected. And the board would then make a judgment call or would make it exercise its discretion on whether it grants you party status or not. It doesn't have to, it's discretionary if you're not affected. Okay. If you live in Quakertown, you're not affected. Thank you for coming, but you're not affected. Okay. So that will go, I'm speaking to the whole room, that will go for, that's the same speech I would give for both applications tonight. So if there's anybody here for the second one, in the interest of time, I'm not going to repeat it. I will ask then if you were here, if you heard my description of party status, and I will ask if you have any interest in it. So for the first case, first application, 338 Park Avenue, is there anybody who's interested in party status? You are. Okay. Let me start at the front. You are, sir?
My name is John Leahy. I'm the owner of Peace Valley Studios, a music studio that will like be rented at Park Ave.
So you're the actual proprietor
I'm
of the business.
I'm going to be renting the property,
All right.
the proprietor of the business that.
Right. So you are a de facto party already. You are not named in the application, but as a tenant, if Ms. Schmidt would ask that you be added as a co-applicant when you begin your testimony, that would be the more appropriate way for you to participate. Okay, since you're the actual operator of the proposed use. Okay. Do that when we get to the open. So, sir, ma'am, what?
We're the Beef Rose. We live at 332 Park Avenue.
Okay, hold on a sec. That's a lot for me to write down. So what are your first and last names again?
Begro, Begrow, Chris and Pat,
Okay,
332 Park Avenue.
332 Park Avenue, and that's next door.
Well, it's within 500 feet.
Did you get a letter?
Yes.
Okay, you'll be granted party status. At the appropriate times, I'll ask you if you have any questions for any of the witnesses, and then when they are finished, the applicant's finished her and his presentation, I'll ask you if you would like to testify. Okay? Just so you're clear, you'll be able to testify. You will be cross-examined, or you'll be subject to it if the applicant or the board has any questions of you. And if you do not like the decision of the board, you would also have a right to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas in Doylestown. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Schmidt, Mr. Leahy, are you the only two that are going to testify?
So
I want you to have a seat.
Thank you very much. I'd ask you to be sworn.
Right hand, please, ma'am. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you very much. Okay. May you present your case?
start.
I'm just been waiting 3 years. This is my third visit here, trying to get someone to rent out the animal hospital, to change the zoning. Seems very interested. There are good people. They can do a good thing for the township with it. Planning to do.
Just to give you guys a little bit of background about my business, I was recently at 102 West Butler Avenue for the year. We outgrew the spot. It was a business suite that we were in. So because of noise and neighbors, direct neighbors next to us, we just needed another spot where we could have kids come in comfortably and be 100% themselves. I did want to clarify on the description there. We do work with kids with disabilities, but we work with all sorts of kids. That's just in addition to, we also work with kids with disabilities. That's about a quarter of our clientele right now. So, yeah.
Could you give us a little more detail of the use itself? Like,
Absolutely. So, currently we offer guitar lessons. We offer piano lessons, bass guitar lessons, and drum lessons. We work, and also art lessons, forgot to mention that as well. So, primarily, all of our clients that are coming in, we're working with on a one-on-one basis. So, you know, if traffic were to be a concern, because I know it is a small, you know, street here, we only have children that are coming in, a group, of, you know, one student and maybe their mom or dad, for about 30 minutes, and then they leave, and that's typically how we conduct lessons. Sometimes we have 2 lessons going on, like a, you know, guitar lesson and a piano lesson going on at the same time. So at most, we would have probably 4 people plus the instructors in the premises, you know, at the time at once.
So when you say 4 people, do you mean 2 students and?
2 students and then probably 1 parent each, and then 2 instructors, typically, yes. And that is at most. Now, typically, I will run most of my lessons just myself, a student, and their parent. That's just at maximum capacity. That's what we would be looking at.
Do you only do students or do you do adults as well?
I primarily do students. I work typically up until the age of 18. It is a goal of mine to start hiring more instructors as the time goes on that are comfortable with working with adults. But primarily I have a certification in the autism field, and I took some classes at Arizona State University for assisting with communication for non-speaking children. So, you know, I'm just trying to use my tools as I best can right now. And then as I become more comfortable as a teacher, then hopefully we'll teach adults. But right now it's primarily kids.
So when you say certification, you have a teaching certification?
I have, I can show you, I have. Both of them stuff here.
I just said you said
I just don't want to
certification.
go through the name, but it's the international Bureau of Certification. It was I believe it was an 8-week class that I took. It was primarily online and then a test.
what's the name of the group again?
It is
Dale.
IB, yeah. With the names on the back.
Well, that's too long.
That's why I
Well, this
wanted to
is-
show it to you.
Said no attorney ever.
So. We're gonna identify this as A1, okay? It is the IBCCES Autism Certification Card issued to John Leahy. And I guess the date of July 19th, 2024 is when it expires.
Yes.
And we would ask you to, when you get a chance, make a copy of this and give it to Mr. Gain,
So this.
okay?
Thank you.
So the instruments that are taught, so you mentioned drums, guitar, piano,
Correct.
that's it.
Yes.
And is the nature acoustic guitar? Is it amplified? Do you use amplifiers?
We do use amplifiers, but we have complete control on the noise. So in our last spot where we were connected to other business suites, we had to 100% be completely aware of our neighbors to make sure that we didn't bother them. So, we had basically, as we got later in the evening, we would gradually turn up, the volume as, other businesses were leaving. But yeah, so we do use them, but we use them with caution. And that goes for the drum kit as well. We have a full drum kit, but primarily my drum instructor teaches on the electronic drum kit.
That was
So,
gonna be my next question.
yeah,
That's the stereotypical.
yeah, and
That's a stereotypical complaint.
yeah,
What an
absolutely.
electronic drum kit
We,
is a good understanding of your situation.
At least it's not 50 dogs barking all at once like it used to be. And even then, when the building was closed up,
So, Mrs. Schmidt or Mr. Leahy, what are your proposed hours of operation and days a week?
yeah, so typically we operate from Monday to Saturdays. Saturdays, we will only conduct business from around 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock at the latest. And then Monday to Friday, typically from 3 o'clock to around 7:30. And then we also will have occasional homeschool programs and things like, sometimes once every other month, just kind of like special events. And those would take place during the day, so at around like 10 or 11 o'clock. Those aren't very common in terms of our consistent hours, the 3 to 7:30, and then 10 to 12 on Saturday.
And the homeschool programs are instruction,
Their instruction, yes, yeah, just with homeschool kids, so we can teach them during the day.
understood.
Yes.
And are there ever any public performances?
Sometimes, so we're working towards that right now. With some of our younger kids, we're working on having them play at Rita's right now. Never public performances at our actual
Yes,
facility.
forgive me for not clarifying. I
Like a
should
recital,
have
like a
it.
recital.
Yes, yes, so.
should have specifically been very specific. I mean, intended on the property.
Yes, so we are working on trying to set up some little performances for some of our students at like Rita's Water Ice. Our only problem in the past really on just securing a spot was sound. So like in our past studio, we couldn't have, first off, we couldn't have 50 cars all come at once with all of our students. So that's our biggest thing on why we kind of are careful with that. But we try to have, groups of some of our kids play out. We just can't really have a whole group recital.
Mr. Leahy, you stated that you would hope that perhaps if the business grew, you would be able to hire more instructors, which in theory would be teaching more students.
Correct.
Would you envision that if that were the case, that your hours would increase?
Yes, I would say that our ultimate goal would to be to try and work with as many students as possible. So if that means that we could run our operation from 9 to 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning to 7:30 most nights, then I absolutely would want to do that. That would be the goal.
So what do you envision the maximum number of students that you'd have at a time?
Maximum students at a time. Can you clarify, like, do you mean in the building or just like under my?
At a time.
Okay, at a time. So currently I'm teaching 20 students right now, which is about 5 students a day for Monday to Thursday. And then my drum instructor also is teaching 5 students. So ideally though, we would like to, have if maybe a better description would be our lessons are either 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So we tried, and with 15 minutes in between, so we try to.
So in your space, what do you consider to be the maximum occupancy for students that you might have? You intend to grow.
Yes, if
How many could, what could it look like as you envision growth?
absolutely. So if we had, say, like a group session where we had maybe a guitar, drum, bass, piano, maybe 4 students with maybe 4 instructors. So I would say 8. And now on cases, yeah, so I would say 8. I would say 8.
I used to take my pets to Dr. Schmidt years ago, and so kind of memory wise, like going in there, but has there been renovation? Are you looking at like soundproofing or like studios or anything, or is it just kind of the floor plan as it was before?
So on the side of soundproofing, we have about $1,500 worth of material that we had from our last space that we're moving into this one. It's by no means complete soundproofing. Because in order to do that, it would cost thousands of dollars to professionally soundproof a building. But it does help dampen the sound, especially the bass. So when it comes to drums and those heavy hits, it does help dampen that especially. So I don't think any sound would come out of the walls, you know, especially with the soundproof that we currently have set up. And
How many cars do you expect to be in the parking lot? High water mark.
at a high ballpark, I would say 5.
That would be, break that 5 down.
If we're saying, we have 3 students, 2 instructors.
Okay.
Right there. And typically, I also do want to mention if we were ever to have a situation where we have like a group program where we have 4 or 5 students in the building. Typically, just what we've seen in the past with these programs is the parents will like leave because it's a hour program as opposed to a 30-minute program. So it really would, it might end up being, you know, 5 cars at once, but then it would probably cut down to, you know, just the instructors' cars for the program until they come to pick them up.
And what kind of parking is on the property? Mr. Schmidt, if you could describe, is there a lot? Is there a driveway? Is there, what was,
There's
could you describe that parking lot for us?
Font time. It's black font.
Is it striped?
No.
But you say 9 cars fit in there comfortably and they can get in and out? Like, yeah, how many students do you see in a day?
I see anywhere between 4 and 7 students a day myself, and then my drum instructor, he only works 2 days out of the week for me. He's only part-time, and those days he will see, I believe it's 4 to 6 or so on both of those days.
So of the 6 days you're open, 4 of them, it's between 4 to 7 students a day, and then the other 2, it's 8 to 13.
I do also want to mention that I would say currently half of my students right now I drive to. I've been teaching guitar for about 6 years. So originally when I started this business, I was driving to all of the students' houses before I could afford to move into unit. So it's kind of just been a steady growth, and those students, a lot of my students I've been teaching for years, so I just continue to drive to their houses. To give you a ballpark, I would say I probably have, I would say between 7 and 10 of those kids coming into the studio that are under me for guitar.
I'm only concerned, at least not concerned, but I'm only curious about the students that
Those
are coming to
students
the
that are
site.
coming in, So let's say 7 to 10,
Okay,
yes.
Mr. Schmidt, do you remember when the animal hospital was operating? It's the number of trips per day that were occurring when they,
Sometimes they're
if you had to give me your best estimate on the number of trips that were made on a daily basis when the animal hospital was open, how many would you think? 20 trips a day? How many, Mr. Leahy, did you think you were gonna have? 10?
I would say 7.
You had mentioned there's some amplification. Are you primarily doing acoustic guitar amplified or electric?
We will do electric, but like I said, we can really control the volume on that, so. You know, we could have it sounding as the level of an acoustic guitar with the effects of an electric guitar.
Is that just restricted to 6-string or regular guitar or bass guitar or all guitar?
No, that's for all of them. So for bass guitar, we can do that. You know, all of the ones that plug in, we can modify and control the volume for.
These are in the building.
It's one back,
One bathroom,
yes.
depending upon the nature of your improvements. It's not necessarily something for this board, but there may be non-zoning issues that affect the overall construction. I'm not sure one bathroom in the modern codes is something that will satisfy. I just don't know. Just cautioning you when it comes to building issues, depending on the types of changes you make, depending on the types of use, depending upon requirements of other boards that have jurisdiction over the use and the property, they may have other things, so they may require some changes. Okay. What were the hours and the days that the vet operated, if you remember?
From 8 in the morning till 8 at night. Sometimes 10 at night, depending on emergencies.
Every day of the week?
Every day except Sunday. And Wednesday evening.
Damon or Mr. Conroy, do you have any questions to the applicants?
Just going back to, the bathroom issue, you might, with the building code, if this board granted full, park the bathroom.
Absolutely. So thank you.
And just to put an underline emphasis, exclamation point, that's not a zoning. We just make sure that we're enabling people to do the right thing rather than get caught later. Because we have no jurisdiction over that.
What? Yeah, let me, so do you have any of your other individuals who came with you, do they have any testimony to offer, or are they just here in support? No. If you want to make a support comment, we'll do that at the end, but if you actually have testimony, we'll get to that. Okay. Do you understand the difference? All right. Mr. Bourgeau, do you have any questions of the applicant, Ms. Schmidt or Mr. Leahy, about their testimony?
No, we're not here to oppose what they're doing. We're just trying to learn about what happens in our township. Thanks for doing a terrific job.
Thank you for coming. But as a party, you got a lot of rights, and I don't want to deprive you of them.
Thank you.
Welcome. So hearing that, no questions, right? Do you have any testimony of your own you'd like to offer? Whether,
The only thing I would say is the noise when there was an animal hospital was on Saturday and Sunday morning. And if I'm gonna listen to somebody learn how to play an instrument, it's better on me to listen to it in the afternoon and evening than be woken up at 6 a.m. by somebody's dog that's boarded there for the weekend. So, as far as noise is concerned, this is a better thing for the neighbors.
hope you're a good teacher, because if you sound worse, the kids sound worse than your dog.
Okay, to adults, I'll never show.
Okay. Mr. Bourgeau, do you want to say anything? Testimony or even? Okay, very good, thank you. Do you have anything more to offer? All right, is there anybody from the public that at this point would just like to make or offer a comment or has a question on this application? No? All right, Hearing none, we'll close the record and
Very good.
go off the record and
Back on the record. The board has completed our deliberations, and with that said, do I have a motion? Would you assist, Mr. Wall?
Yes, I will frame it as follows. The board finds the relief that you need in the special exception request. You are changing from one prior non-conforming use to a new non-conforming use, meaning a use that's not permitted in the watershed zoning district. So the board finds a variance is not needed. Okay? The board grants the special exception, but it's subject to the following conditions. No outdoor performances. Parking for the use, meaning students, clients, and staff, is limited to that parking lot that's next to the building. Okay, you don't want anybody, people parking in the street or on the grass.
And they parking lot with the house.
She owns the residence directly next door.
Right next to. And this grass there.
It won't be necessary. That,
We're gonna limit it. If you need it to park there, you'll make a refreshed application. We're trying to, Mr. Schmidt, understand the nature of the condition is to not have it completely uncontrolled. The board doesn't need control, but it needs to not be uncontrolled. So to know that much like many business, there's a parking lot for it, and this is where everybody goes. That is the rule that applies to everybody in the township. The rule that doesn't apply is you park in the guy next door, you park in the street, you park in, there's no street parking there, there's people aren't parking in front yards. So the fact that that happened before is now impacting this use. Okay. So the parking is, if you have an issue with the parking, and you need to alter it, you would come back and ask for a modification of this condition. Okay. And the hours and days of operation will be as you stated them. Monday to Friday, 3 to 7:30, Saturday, 10 to 1. There are exceptions for the 1 or 2 times a month with a homeschool. Again, if you need, because of your business changes in the future, or want to modify those, you can make a reapplication to the board. Those conditions will attach to your zoning relief. Right? Those conditions basically are the zoning ordinance as it pertains to your property only. Okay. So if you want to change those conditions, you have to come back to see Mr. Gaiman and Mr. Conroy, and they'll explain what you can do. Okay.
thank you.
So there's a motion in there somewhere.
Somebody make the second in there somewhere?
I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You have your relief. You'll get a written decision, both of you, within 45 days of today. But in your meantime, you can speak to Mr. Gaiman and Mr. Conroy about how you can continue your project along while the written decision is being issued. Okay? Good luck.
Thanks so much. And Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Couple of minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Second hearing on the agenda tonight will be for the property located at 308 Dorothy Lane. Mr. Gaiman, will you please read the public notice and place the application on record?
The application of Michael and Sushama Thevar for the property located at 308 Dorothy Lane, New Britain Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, identified as tax map parcel number 26-1-125-13. The property is located in the SR2 suburban residential zoning district. Property is improved with a single-family detached dwelling, use B1. The applicants propose a non-commercial swimming pool accessory use H4. The applicants seek variances from the following sections of the New Britain Township zoning ordinance. A from section 27-305 H4B2 to permit the pool to be between the principal structure and the right-of-way line of Anna Way, and B from section 27-804A to permit the pool accessory structure to be within the required minimum 50 feet front yard setback area along Anna Way.
Thank you very much.
They are as follows. Exhibit B1 is a zoning hearing board application included with it, with attachment outlining the relief requested. Current deed for the property dated December 19th, 2019, and a list of property owners within 500 feet. Exhibit B2 is a letter dated March 15th, 2023 from Gavin Lebowski, attorney for the applicants, amending the application. Exhibit B3 is a permit plan consisting of one sheet prepared by Holmes Cunningham. It's dated July 14th, 2022, and it has a last revision date of September 28th, 2022. Exhibit B4 is a letter to the Intelligencer forwarding public notice for advertising. Exhibit B5 is the public notice that was just read into the record. Exhibit B6 is proof that the notice was published in the April 6th and April 13th, 2023 editions of the Intelligencer. Exhibit B7 is a letter to the applicants and their attorney providing them notice of this hearing. Exhibit B8 is the township list of property owners within 500 feet, property that's the subject of the application, and together with that list is a map of those properties. Exhibit B9 is an affidavit of mailing that notice of this hearing was mailed to the property owners listed on Exhibit B8. That notice was mailed on April 12th, 2023 by Ryan Gaiman. Exhibit B10 is an affidavit of posting that notice of this hearing was posted on the property on April 13th, 2023, also by Ryan Gaiman. Exhibit B11 is the Bucks County floodplain viewer aerial and map of property.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here, sir, I'm speaking to you basically, that you were here for my discussion about how the public can participate in this hearing during the prior application, were you?
Yes.
All right, and you wish for party status to this application?
Yes.
You do, okay. What is your name?
Paul Karchetsky. 19 Walter Ray,
Could you spell your name?
KARCEW. That's one.
Did you get a letter or notice of this hearing in the mail? Okay, you'll be granted party status. Okay.
Good evening.
You can begin.
Thank you, Gavin Lebowski. I represent Michael and Sushama Fivar. Mr. Fivar is seated next to me and his wife is 2 rows behind. With the board's permission, I'd like to summarize this application as an offer of proof and have Mr. Fivar sworn and adopt that testimony. That's acceptable.
It is acceptable. Thank
Great.
you.
You want him sworn first or you want to wait?
First, please.
It's so first.
Swear or affirm testimony. Nothing.
Yeah. So as was stated in the summary, Mr. and Mrs. Fivar purchased the property in 2019. They are the original owners. It's the development that was recently built off of Walter Road. They use the property as a single family dwelling. It's approximately 2 acres of land in the SR2 district, contains the dwelling, driveway, walkways, and a covered patio. The covered patio is the only improvement that's to the rear of the dwelling. The Fivars have proposed, as you can see on the plan that's an exhibit to this application, to improve the property with the H4 non-commercial swimming pool and related amenities, including an equipment pad and a small sort of pool house or cabana located there, along with patio and landscaping. We've also proposed some stormwater management berm, which is depicted on the plan and also located at the lower part of the disturbed area. The H4 use, of course, is permitted by right in the SR2 district, and as was explained, the applicant requires relief from the requirement or the prohibition of installing the use between the dwelling and the right-of-way of Anna Way, as well as the location of the accessory use in a front yard. So the property has a lot of unique features, and what I'd like to do is start from the bottom of the plan. So if you put the plan in front of you and start with me at the bottom, first thing you'll notice is that the property is long and narrow. It fronts two different streets, Anna Way and Dorothy Lane. Anna Way, if you're not familiar, is one way in from Walter Road. So it's a smaller, it's not a two-way street, it's a smaller access way into the development. The driveway is in the front, takes access on Dorothy Lane. So beginning at the bottom of the property, the first thing you'll notice is that the rear of their property is encumbered with the Texas Eastern transmission line. Going up from that, you'll see riparian zone 2 and riparian zone 1 adjacent to a riparian feature that sort of enters the property from what is the southwest property line. Your ordinance prohibits any development in those riparian buffer zones. So anywhere that you see riparian zone 2 and riparian zone 1, there are a multitude of restrictions. The improvements that the VARs are proposing would not be permitted in those areas. The riparian zone extends all the way up the side property line on the opposite side where the improvements are proposed. The next thing that you'll see is natural resource easement F. And that is an easement that was imposed on the property when the development was originally approved. And it's essentially a patch of woods. And those woods also are not able to be disturbed. There's no clearing, there's no cutting, there's certainly no construction. What that means is that the VAR's available building envelope in the rear, you can see the building setback line off of Anna Way. It essentially corresponds, it's the dotted line that goes through the pool. And it then corresponds with the dark, heavy dotted line, which is the limit of disturbance line. That limit of disturbance line matches the natural resource easement F and the riparian zone. So the area that's depicted on the plan as the limit of disturbance in the backyard is the only available building envelope in the backyard. So you can see, beginning at the left, the covered patio is just a few feet away on that side. And then within that building envelope, you'll see the contour lines. There's a sloped area that slopes away from the back of the house towards the riparian zone and the natural resource easement. So the left, as you're looking at the plan, behind the house closest to the covered patio, is virtually unusable because there's no room and there's also a slope at that location. So the only suitable location for any sort of accessory structure or improvement in the rear of the property has to be orientated to the right or to the property line closest to Anna Way. And that's what they've done in this case. And so what you can see is that the pool itself is 41.9 feet from the right of way of Anna Way. Keep in mind that if this was considered a side yard, your ordinance considers them both front yards and has a 50-foot setback. If it were a side yard, the pool would be allowed to be 15 feet from that location. It's 41.9. And indeed, the VARs use that portion of their property not as a front yard. Traditionally, it's more of a side yard to them because they take access from Dorothy. And of course, the landscaping and all of the paving that occurs on that side is intended to buffer or block that side of the pool as it relates to Anna Way. Couple of comments. You'll see the elevation 325.25 in that box. That box is the proposed pool house or cabana. To the upper left of that, you can barely see it. It's a 35 square foot equipment pad. I have spoken with the gentleman that's here, Mr. Tarchevsky. Did I say that?
Yeah.
I should get that right, given my last name. And he expressed a few concerns. I'm in no way taking any words out of his mouth, and I'm not having to speak for him, but we had a chance to speak in the lobby. He had a few concerns that my client is willing to address, and I hope that they remain satisfactory. Mr. Tarchevsky is concerned about water flowing down onto his property, and in particular, water that is coming from the pool itself, chlorinated water. He has a pond, he has other features on his property. He's concerned about the health of those water features, as Mr. Devar is. What we've decided to do, or to try to appease those concerns, is to relocate that equipment pad closer to and away, so on the other side of the pool. So that in the event, if somebody's servicing the pool and they decide to discharge water, it will come down into that infiltration bed. As opposed to running beyond the infiltration bed towards Mr. Francesca's property. That's number one. Number two, to further prevent any runoff of pool water into the Karchevsky property, you'll see the berm, the infiltration berm, that's the heavy line just inside the limit of disturbance. Mr. Thavar will agree to extend that berm up to, you'll see a contour line on the plan roughly around where that 323 mark is. I'm looking at TJ to make sure that he has it before I continue.
I'm sure a bigger plan, I'll have it.
If you take the if you take the square building and you take the far left corner and you go out, you'll see the contour line 323.
I see it on this nice big plan that nobody sent me.
You want hard copies next time?
Mr.
No, what I'll
Thavar,
do is take this PDF when I get back to the office.
you can have mine.
Can't, no, I can just take this little spot and make it even bigger.
He would agree to extend the berm up to that point on the plan. And then the last thing that Mr. Karchevsky recommended that Mr. Thavar would agree to as a condition is that a sign be placed near the pool equipment to direct those that are servicing it not to discharge water in a certain direction. I'll let him speak as to what that sign ought to say. Some sort of sign that would warn those servicing the pool to avoid water heading towards his property. So based upon the condition of the property, its unique circumstances, it has a lot of restrictions. There's a very small building envelope, a very small area to put any accessory structure. So even if they wanted to put up a shed or a jungle gym or anything like that, they're very restricted based upon the natural resources, the buffers, all the protections that exist on the lot in a very small building area. It's no surprise that portion of their improvements have to extend into that yard. That coupled with the fact that the property is on a corner, the ordinance calls them both front yards, leads to them having to have some of those improvements. They've tried to cite them into the building area, but they inevitably extend beyond. So we think that there is a legitimate basis to grant a variance in this case. We think that the requested relief is a minimum necessary to allow reasonable use of the property, allow some permitted accessory uses to be allowed. Other properties in the neighborhood have swimming pools, so the swimming pool certainly will not affect adversely the character of the neighborhood. And it would give the Thavars a chance to further enjoy their beautiful property. That's the summary of my testimony. Mr. Thavar, did you hear all of my summary?
Yes.
And do you agree that it's accurate and correct?
Yes.
Is there anything about my testimony that you'd like to add or alter?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Very much, appreciate it.
Mr. Karchevsky, did Mr. Lebowski accurately state the items that you were interested in?
Yes.
And did he accurately set forth that if those conditions are attached to any relief the board might grant, that would satisfy your concerns?
Yes.
To resources.
That's what he said, yes. Okay.
So do you, but
Right.
So his property is an out parcel of this development, so he's to the left of this property as you look at the plan.
Okay, so you're not across Walter Road, you're on the same side of Walter Road? Okay.
The development surrounds me.
This used to be your family's property?
Yeah.
I have no question. It's straightforward. Mr. Karchevsky, then, do you have anything further to offer? then what won't affect your pond?
Chlorine.
So the stormwater, here's how I can answer. I can't guarantee you anything, okay, nor can the township. That's not how it works. The township will require the Thavars to enter into what's called a stormwater management agreement. There may already be one as a result of the original subdivision, but no, there is. I can almost guarantee there is. Okay. It's recorded against their property, not yours. That requires them to maintain the existing stormwater facilities that are on the property when they bought it. Now that they're adding a new one, the township may require an amendment to that existing stormwater agreement, which will address the new berm that's being put in, as well as any other concerns that the township's review of it for the stormwater purposes raises. When they do that, the Thavars and any future property owner, as long as this pool is there, will be subject to those obligations, whatever those obligations in the stormwater agreement require as far as the pool. That is the greatest amount of guarantee that anybody in this room or in this building can give you. Okay?
Well, in the past, the old storm. I had the fish commission out, the EP out and whatnot in the past, because the water from the road comes down and goes right onto my property. There's no retention basin, no nothing there, and comes right down in the pond, and I've had fish kills in the past. The
Okay.
fish commission guy came out and said it's a total violation of everything. Everything here should not. Should go down the way.
Were you here when we talked about at the outset of both of the initial hearing that there's some matters that affect everybody's property that this board doesn't have jurisdiction over?
Yeah.
We don't, okay, that's one of them. The Fish Commission is one of them. The runoff of the road is one of them. This board's jurisdiction is limited to allowing or considering to allow that pool in the front yard, okay? But part of the balancing act that goes along with allowing that pool in the front yard is addressing to make sure that the runoff is taken care of. The runoff is taken care of by a review of the stormwater ordinance. Okay, and that doesn't involve the stormwater ordinance. This this couple's property doesn't involve the road. It involves what comes off their property. Okay. I'm not trying to mislead you in any way, sir. I'm trying to say this is as effective a way that the township can address runoff that is now incident to the pool. But it's not a guarantee. Nothing is. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, sir. For that?
Nothing from the applicant. Thank
All
you.
right. Go off the record.
We'll go back on the record.
Yeah.
We've completed our deliberation. Do I have a motion?
Subject to the,
Propose. State.
subject to those three conditions.
Yes.
Relocate the equipment pad, the berm will be extended, and a sign will be installed approved by the township.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Appreciate
you
it.
have your
Thank you.
relief, you'll talk to your attorney, he'll explain the next. steps.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
Mr.
you.
Krajewski, thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
We'll just pause, get one more to put on the record and continue. We're not gonna.
I almost forgot about that one.
I'm usually the one who's like,
Yeah, right.
I'm usually the one who forgets, but I'm on it. Don't get used to it.
Mr. Krajewski is he guaranteed that he doesn't get that?
This property does it, right, so I've been by it. He's a scoffer.
Okay.
Are we still on TV? Oh, get rid of that crap. That's all.
T.
Well, I hope I said it straight up.
You did.
The last item, we'll open the hearing on 180 New Britain Boulevard, 354 Schoolhouse Road. Everything has been advertised, noticed, and mailings have gone out to open hearing tonight. We will read those exhibits into the record next hearing. The applicant did request a continuance from this hearing until May 18th, 2023, and the board routinely grants the first continuance request from an applicant, and that's what this is. So we'll open that hearing and adjourn it immediately until May 18th, 2023.
Do I need to say anything or we?
No, you're good. That's all. Just so we have a record of it. Thank you, Brenda.
Make it so.
And we have it on live TV.
And with that, hearing is adjourned.